Chris Pratt and Ellen Page have a complete social media meltdown over LGBTQXYZ, the rest of the letters, issues. Justin Bieber goes without sex for a year, and I give you the long awaited crash course relationships for dummies. My name is Lisa Steele. This is Deconstructing the Culture. Jumping right into the news, an article came out by Paul Boyes from the Daily Wire a little while ago, and it was titled, Justin Bieber Confesses to Self-Imposed Year-Long Celibacy Prior to Marriage. Quote, I wanted to rededicate myself to God. Now, the reason why I am covering this, I usually don't cover anything really with celebrities a whole lot, but I figured, what the heck, I'm going to do kind of a themed episode. We just had Valentine's Day, and y'all asked me a lot of relationship questions, and so I'm going to make this entire episode about relationships. So starting with our new segment, Justin Bieber spoke with Vogue about his courtship with Hailey Baldwin, who is now Hailey Bieber. They're married, and their 2018 wedding. Bieber confessed that he gave up sex for a year, admitting he had a legitimate problem with premarital sex. Not only did Bieber experience a spiritual transformation, he realized that God's call to chastity is about liberating people from being slaves to their passions. Justin Bieber goes on here, and it's, quote, he doesn't ask us not to have sex for him because he wants rules and stuff, Bieber told Vogue. He's like, I'm trying to protect you from hurt and pain. I think sex can cause a lot of pain. And Bieber right here is absolutely right. That's why I bring it up. It's not usually actually ever I read about celebrities because, quite frankly, I find it to be kind of boring. My own family's lives are pretty crazy, and I find them to be more interesting and more worthwhile to keep up with than celebrities. But for this one, I did take notice because although I don't necessarily like a lot of what Bieber does, I did think that it was admirable that he was willing to talk about this in such a public way, and this is not a popular topic, especially in Hollywood. So the pop star went on to say that premarital sex often serves as a crutch for people, making up for a lack of self-perceived self-worth, adding that he wanted to rededicate his body to God and cleanse his soul. Quote, sometimes people have sex because they don't feel good enough, because they lack self-worth. Bieber said, women do that and guys do that. I wanted to rededicate myself to God in a way because I really felt like it was better for the condition of my soul. And I believe that God blessed me with Hailey as a result. There are perks. You get rewarded for good behavior. Now, maybe the whole rewarded for good behavior has some questionable, I don't know about that being biblically accurate. The main message that he's putting out here is absolutely spot on. God doesn't make rules about premarital sex because he just wants to put crazy rules on us and make life difficult. He puts them there because having premarital sex does have a lot of pain and suffering that can, and most of the time does, in fact, I would say all the time, does come with it. And I am saying this not in like a super judgy, preachy way. While I didn't participate in premarital sex and I was a virgin when I got married, I have many, many, many very close loved ones who have, or in some cases do, participate in premarital sex. So I say this out of love, that waiting until you're married is designed that way by God because it protects us from the hurt of that can come and does come with premarital sex. So that's the reason why I bring that up. So I think that's awesome. Way to go, Justin Bieber, for saying that. I'm sure that's not popular, and I really hope that inspires some of his diehard fans to maybe reconsider lifestyle choices, or maybe upcoming, they're young, and maybe just reconsider how they're going to live their life. I think that's pretty awesome. Moving on, Chris Pratt and Ellen Page drama. Oh my goodness. So Chris Pratt, you guys, if you're not already a huge fan of him like I am, maybe you will be. He's in the Lego movie as the voices behind a couple of their different characters, and he's also in Guardians of the Galaxy. He's the star of that one, and I personally really like Chris Pratt. I think he's funny, and he is funny in this weird kind of quirky way that just makes him really likable and lovable. And I also really like that he has, as far as Hollywood stars go, he has been a very vocal person for Christianity, and I really like that. Now, I don't think he always gets it 100% right, but I don't know anyone who does get it always 100% right. I can guarantee you that right now I hold beliefs that aren't theologically sound that later I'm probably going to regret or have to publicly take back if I have spoken about them before I really figured that out. So I'm not really going to hold him super closely tight on that. But Chris Pratt recently was attacked by the media as going to an infamously anti-LGBTQ church. And I'm raising my eyebrow and like, are you for real right now? Because if you're going to say that, then all Christian churches are infamously anti-LGBTQ. It's the Christian religion. The Christian religion is we don't condone sin. And sin is something we all have, and we're infamously against all sin. We're infamously against premarital sex. We're infamously against stealing. You don't see the media every single time they decide they want to attack somebody, beat them over the head with something. You don't see them go and be like, oh, Chris Pratt infamously goes to a church that you wouldn't believe it. They're against murdering people. Can you believe it? It's like, are you freaking kidding me right now? Do you not know basic anything about life or basic anything about Western culture that's founded on Christianity? Is that as a religion, we're for trying to live a life that isn't accepting and condoning of sin. And that covers abortion, that covers murdering, that covers stealing, that covers being lesbian and gay, that covers being straight and just sleeping around before you're married. So I just think it's gross that the media decides to whip this one out every time they can't find something to hit someone over the head with. They whip this out like, shocking. Did you know? Oh my gosh, this celebrity, they don't believe in stealing. Oh man, how dare they? It's like, are you kidding me right now? So I first of all, I find that to just be crazy. And I just think it's crap that we Christians have to deal with this over and over, especially because there are religions out there that condone truly horrible things. And so, for instance, if we found a high level celebrity who is Muslim, like a dedicated Muslim, and you would never find the media coming out and being like, oh my gosh, do you know this person? They go to a church that condones killing people if they aren't your religion. You should kill. And they believe you should kill everybody who's not part of your religion. No, Guess what? The Christian religion doesn't even have anything that awful in our religion. And so we have to find LGBT as the shocking, awful thing. But quite frankly, the Muslim religion has some really awful, graphic parts of the religion that are still openly celebrated and taught. And there are people who openly celebrate and follow those teachings. And we don't find the media constantly going around being like, did you hear? It's like, yeah, the document's been around for thousands of years and you're shocked because you just found this out. Anyways, I digress. Continuing on. Recently, after Pratt was slandered I shouldn't say slandered, after it was pointed out the obvious that Christian churches don't condone LGBTQ marriages, at least not real Christian churches. There are a few nutballs and nutcases that do condone that, and I don't think that they are Christians at all. Because, anyways, continuing, it was Ellen Page. She wrote on Twitter, but his church is infamously anti-LGBTQ, so maybe address that too, Page wrote. She later doubled down, tweeting, if you're a famous actor and you belong to an organization that hates a certain group of people, don't be surprised if somebody simply wonders why it's not addressed. Being anti-LGBTQ is wrong. There aren't two sides. The damage it causes is severe. Full stop. Sending love to all. So first of all, the fact that she put full stop just makes me roll my eyes. Like, seriously, you think we're not going to say anything because you wrote the words full stop? All right, then. Somebody fell off the craziest train. That's not how social media works. But continuing with that, it's the same thing as I just pointed out. You know, you belong to an organization that, and also, let me back up. There's nothing that says that we hate, and churches don't teach that we hate LGBTQ people. We just don't condone sin. That's it. I have family members who are gay and lesbian. Some of them actively live it, some of them don't, and they purposely live a life because they're Christians, and they live a life where they don't participate in that behavior. And I admire that so much, because that's such a huge cross to bear. But it doesn't mean I hate those people. I know it sounds cliche, but you hate the sin, not the sinner. So anyways, that's dumb for her to say that. But then he replied with this is a little long, but he replied, "It has recently been suggested that I belong to a church which hates a certain group of people, and it is infamously anti-LGBTQ. Nothing could be further from the truth," he wrote. "I go to a church that opens the doors to absolutely everyone. Despite what the Bible says about divorce, my church community was there for every step of the way, never judging, just gracefully accompanying me on my walk. They helped me tremendously, offering love and support. And it is what I have seen them do for others on countless occasions, regardless of sexual orientation, race, or gender." He continued, "My faith is important to me, but no church defines me or my life, and I am not a spokesman for my church or a group of people. My values define who I am. We need less hate in this world and not more. I'm a man who believes that everyone is entitled to love who they want, free from the judgment of their fellow men." Stop right there. So, like I said, I don't really follow celebrities, even though I like Chris Pratt. I don't know the full details of his life. I don't know what the story is behind his divorce. I do remember reading somewhere vaguely, briefly, that he had been married for like 9 years, and I think he has a son, and then he got divorced, and now he's getting remarried to, I'm blanking, previous governor of California. He has this heavy accent. I'm totally blanking. Arnold Schwarzenegger's daughter. He's marrying her. Anyways, I don't know the story behind his divorce. I don't know if it's because maybe there was some cheating involved, or maybe they just didn't get along. I don't know what it is. All I know is I don't know, so I'm not going to speak into the divorce and his church coming alongside him. So I'm just going to set that there and leave it alone. I don't particularly agree that divorce is ever a good thing, unless in certain situations, which I'll go into another time. So I'm just going to leave that situation where it's at, because I don't know the whole story. And quite frankly, I don't know that I care enough to go find the whole story. It's celebrity, okay? But while I do think it's wrong that the media would try and beat Chris Pratt over the head with this, I don't think the way, like I said, I don't think he's theologically sound completely. The fact that he would put, "I'm a man who believes that everyone is entitled to love who they want, free from judgment from their fellow man." Well, yes and no. I don't know that anyone's entitled to really a whole lot, except life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which I guess you could put under pursuit of happiness. What I'm trying to say is, when outside of religion, let's put religion aside for just a second, government speaking, yeah, I don't care what you do in your bedroom. And as long as you just keep it to yourself, honestly, I just don't care. Quit trying to push it in my face. Quit trying to get involved in marriage, because marriage is a religious act anyways. It's a religious function. So yeah, it's just messy. Basically, I think the government should get out of marriage altogether, but I just don't think he's necessarily theologically sound to state this, because there's nothing in the Bible that says everyone is entitled to love whoever they want, free of any judgment. Sure, you can, if you're a man and you love a man, you can love them, but I don't think that it's okay for you to be stepping them, because that's against the Bible. So if you're a Christian and you claim to be Christian, then yeah, there is judgment there. And as Christians, coming alongside of, I don't mean throwing rocks at, I mean coming alongside of our Christian brothers and sisters, I do think it's appropriate for us to say, hey, that is a sin, that is wrong. The same way, this would never happen, but the same way, if I was cheating on my husband, a straight woman, I'm married, if I was cheating on my husband, it would be 100% appropriate for my fellow Christians to come alongside me and say, hey, Elisa, what you're doing is wrong. It is wrong for you to cheat on your husband. It is wrong to break those sacred covenants that you made when you got married. And so, yeah, I don't think that he's completely on there, but it is just like I said, just the fact that the media will find anything Christian related to beat Christians over the head and completely ignore other much more sketchy religions or sketchy stances that other people take is just, it's disgusting to me. So now we're going to move on to our topic for the day. Usually I would spend quite a bit more time on different news stories, but today, because we recently passed Valentine's Day, I'm going to answer some of your many relationship questions because I get a lot of these, and I'll probably do this maybe every so often because I get so many. So we're just going to tackle a few today because I can only answer so many in one podcast. So here we go. Relationships for Dummies 101. Not that you guys are dummies. That was just part of an old series of books I remember as a kid. Okay, Jenny asks, I'd like to hear thoughts on chastity and how to set boundaries in a relationship. So I feel like I kind of already told you my thoughts on chastity. I believe that God makes those rules to protect us, not because he hates us and doesn't want us to have a fun time having sex. It's because he wants us to be protected. And he knows that long term, we will be happier, healthier, and thrive if we follow the rules he sets for us out of the Bible. So those are my thoughts on chastity. As far as how to set boundaries in a relationship, I literally was actually having this conversation with a really good friend of mine earlier today. She's young. I think she's 18, and she's, in a relationship, and I was giving her some unsolicited advice. Thank goodness she's a sweetheart, and she was totally fine with it. But these are my advice for setting boundaries in a relationship. And you guys at first are going to think I'm crazy because I'm going to sound a little radical, but I put boundaries on how late, and these are the boundaries that I followed when I was dating, at least as best I could. I put boundaries on how late you are out. Nothing good happens after 10 o'clock. I know it sounds super early, but truly nothing good happens after 10 o'clock. Unless you're like with a big group of like your family and you're staying right with your family or right with your friends so that there's no like sneaking off, then really I don't think you should be hanging out past 10 o'clock. It's just your brain just starts to get tired. You start not thinking as clearly, and I don't think it just leaves you in a compromising situation. So that's A, for setting boundaries. B is kissing. You need to set big boundaries on kissing. It doesn't matter if you are 17 or 70. Well, maybe when you're 70, I don't know if it matters quite as much, but you do need to put some heavy boundaries on kissing. And here's why. The science behind it, to put it very simply and kind of in layman's terms, the science behind it is when you start kissing, we already know our male counterparts are very, very hormonal, much more hormonal than we women are. And so what happens when you start making out, especially for an extended period of time, the testosterone and hormones in the man's saliva start to go into your saliva and through your body. And what they do is they actually start to go to your prefrontal cortex. This is right up here. It's your critical thinking place where you make a lot of that critical thinking and those decisions. And what happens is as that testosterone and other hormones, crazy hormones, start to enter your body, it starts to shut down the critical thinking and decision-making part of your brain. So you might think, oh, I'm in charge. I can make sure we don't go too far because I know honey, it doesn't matter what your intentions are. You start making out for extended periods of time when you're alone, bad things will happen. And when I mean bad, I mean things that feel really, really good. It's just not the right timing, honey. Okay? So put boundaries on how heavily you kiss because that will affect, no matter how much you think you're in charge, you're not in charge when those chemicals start hitting your brain. So you need to be very careful. So that's what I say for boundaries. And I feel pretty firmly about these. And I've had quite a bit of dating experience, and I've had my fair share of mistakes. So that's all I'm going to say about that. Sydney asks, I want to know how to set standards in a relationship. So standards in a relationship, I kind of feel like I just answered that similar. I think when you mean standards, you mean boundaries. So you sit down, you have a talk. What I would suggest also is bringing in another couple who you can be close to, who are like older and they've had more experience. I would say preferably married, and tell them, hey, these are our rules, these are our boundaries, and have them keep you accountable, because when it's just the two of you, you will get overwhelmed by those feelings and by those hormonal desires. And so I would say it's good to have running partners, people to be accountable to. Emily asks, is it better to act casual and uninterested to keep him chasing you, or is that old-fashioned mumbo jumbo? Great question, Emily. So here's the thing. I don't think that dating is just for fun. And I'm saying this as someone who did date just for fun, and I don't recommend it. It's just not healthy. Dating is for marriage. And if you're dating, you should be going into it thinking, can I marry this person? And if it's a no, You need to just be done. And if it's a yes, then you go through those steps one by one of the most important things. You have those conversations right off the bat of the most important things, like how many kids you're going to have. Do you share the same faith? Do you share the same political views, which is really important because that ties strongly in with faith. Do you want to live the same areas? Are your dreams compatible that you can grow together and encourage each other? I mean, there's so many things. Those are just off the top of my head, and those aren't particularly in the right order. Faith is the most important one on that. But as far as keep it casual and uninterested to keep him chasing you, no, I don't think that's appropriate. I think it does a disservice to you and the man, because if you're acting casual and uninterested, keep him chasing you. What is this? Are you interested in marriage or not? You're leaving him wondering, and you're probably confusing yourself. So no, I think that yes, I understand also the spirit of what you're asking, Emily. Yes, I believe it's important for the man to pursue and to be a gentleman, but I also think it's for the woman to be feminine and to be a gentle woman and to be a lady and be upfront with where she's at, and keeping him chasing you. I'm sorry, but that confuses everybody, and that's just for playing a game. And relationships and dating is not a game. It's for marriage. So while I think the old-fashioned gentleman part is very important, you should keep that. Having him chasing you, not so much. Just be upfront. Be honest. And I don't want to take this too far or make this too long, but what's so funny is I don't necessarily I wouldn't tell everyone do what I did, but I had dated a lot of people before I met my husband. And so when I did meet my husband, I knew immediately, like, I'm not even kidding, within the first week. We weren't even dating. He showed no interest in me. I didn't show any interest in him. I just was observing him. And I knew within the first week, I want to marry him. I just knew it. And I texted my mom within that first week and I said, Mom, I met the boy I'm going to marry. And I just knew. And so with that in mind, knowing that, I wanted to marry him because he was everything I was looking for, with morals, standards, not to mention he was hot. He was freaking hot. He still is freaking hot. So all of that, he was everything. He was a whole package, and I knew I wanted to marry him. So I actually talked to him and I said, basically, I really admire you. I really like you. Is this something that is this reciprocated? Because I would really like to date you. What's funny is he said, no, I'm not interested. That's actually a whole nother story. And the reason why I didn't find this out until later after we were dating, but the reason why he said no is not that he didn't like me. He told me right away, he's like, I thought you were freaking hot, but I told you no because I was under a strong impression that you were another religion. He thought I wasn't Christian. He thought I was Mormon. And as a Christian, he didn't see any future in dating a Mormon girl because he felt like that wasn't compatible and that wasn't something he could do long term, because he was looking at marriage. He wasn't thinking just dating for fun. He was thinking dating for marriage. And for him, he wouldn't marry a Mormon girl. So he told me no. But I'm not kidding. Literally it was a while later, it was a few weeks later, we were with a group of people, and I think I was with some other people, and we were looking at music, and we were talking about music taste just casually, like as friends. And I think a friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours, was in between and was like, oh, hey, I think I asked him, I said, are you Christian? Because I think there were some Christian apps on his phone. And he's like, yeah, I am. And then he asked me, he's like, are you Christian? And I was like, oh, yeah, I am. He's like, oh, I thought you were a Mormon. And I was like, no, I'm Christian. And then literally within the next 10 minutes, he'd asked me on our first date. And that was the rest of it. Like, we never dated anyone else after that. We went out on that date and we were inseparable ever since. So it was a little bit of a long-winded story, but that's kind of the super short story of how we started dating. But hopefully that answers your question, Emily. AJ asked, dating tips for the conservative Christian man would be appreciated. You should get a guest to share some wisdom on that. That was a great question, AJ. And also, I think I will do that. Maybe one of our future relationship podcasts will bring on some experts, or maybe I'll just bring on my husband. We'll hear his side of the story. But for dating tips for conservative men, be forthwith. I don't know what I was trying to say right there. Be forward in addressing girls. Treat her respectfully, treat her like a gentleman, open her doors, be kind to her, but be upfront. Just the same thing I would tell a woman: get to know her, learn her values upfront, learn where she's at, and make sure you're compatible. Don't lead her on. Don't do anything that you wouldn't want another man doing to your future wife, if you catch my drift. Also, I wouldn't do any of this like texting culture. Don't text her on a first date if you can help it. That's just kind of lame. Be bold. If you're, be man enough to ask her out officially. Don't say, can we hang out as like friends or something? Just be bold. Just say, hey, I'm really interested. I'd really like to get to know you better. Would you go on a date with me? Like, just bring in some old fashioned stances, I guess. I feel like, yeah, that's where I'm going to leave it for now. But you're right, AJ. We'll bring on some other people to talk about this more in depth another time. All right, last one I'm going to have time for today is Christian asks, opinion on renting versus owning for newlyweds. I am not a financial guru, but I do subscribe a lot to Dave Ramsey. If you're not familiar with him, he's phenomenal. I definitely recommend checking him out. I don't believe in debt whenever it can possibly be avoided. So for me, I would say if you're in a position to buy, then you should buy. And if you're not in a position to buy, then you should rent somewhere where you can save some money and then buy. So hopefully that answers your question. If you need more on that, I recommend looking up Dave Ramsey. He's phenomenal. Actually, I lied. I'm going to take one more because that was short. Jennifer asks, please share wisdom that actually looks different from the world's standards, including boundaries, physical touch, time commitment standards, etc. All right, I feel like I answered a lot of that already. So boundaries, I think it's important from the very beginning to discuss, even though it might feel awkward in your relationship, it's important to discuss your physical boundaries. It's also important to discuss if there's any kind of dysfunction in his family or your family with boundary trumping. It's important to recognize those, discuss those, and make healthy boundaries. Physical touch, I talked about that. And standards. Yeah, I just think your values and your standards need to match up. And if they don't match up, then you're wasting your time. So you need to get those out there like on the first date. I'm not even kidding, on the first date. The only reason why I didn't necessarily talk about that on the very first date with my husband is because we were doing a political internship and it was very, very conservative. So just by him being there, we both kind of already had known for the last however many weeks leading up to our first date where we were. We both knew we were crazy pro-life. We both knew we were pro-family. We both knew that we were for traditional marriage. We both knew right before my husband asked me out, we both knew we were both Christian. So we already had a lot of this rolling before we even went on our first date. So that's all I have time for those, but I will open that up and we'll do another episode kind of like this in the future. So for today's music, I'm going to do Perfect by Ed Sheeran. So I'm going to go ahead and play a little bit of that and then I'll tell you some of that. I'll tell you my thoughts on that. So here we go.
Baby, I'm dancing in the dark with you between my arms. The grass, we're listening to our favorite song. When you said you looked a mess, I whispered underneath my breath, but you heard it, darling. You look perfect tonight.
Okay, I love that song. Really love that song. I brought this because I feel like this is like one of my very favorite love songs, and with Valentine's and relationships, I thought, what the heck? So something that I love about this is he's just such an old-fashioned romantic, it feels like, in this. He says, I found a love for me, darling, just dive right in and follow my lead. So already right there, I don't know if the artist intentionally meant that, but I love that male leadership. I found you, let's dive right in. It shows this willingness to just move forward. It's just a really, really sweet song. I love this because we were just kids when we fell in love, and so I guess part of this is sentimental for me. This reminds me so much of me and my husband's relationship. We met when we were super young. We got married super young. We still are super young. So we definitely were kids when we fell in love, and we dated for quite some time before we got married. But that's another story. I'll tell you guys another time. And I love. There's another part in here where he says, "Let me look for it." I love this. Well, I found a woman stronger than anyone I know, because it is good for women to be strong. You have to be tough to be a mom. You have to be tough to live in this world and hold your values. So I love that he is recognizing and valuing the strength in his woman, that she shares his dreams. And he says, someday I hope I'll share her home. I found a love to carry more than just my secrets, to carry love, to carry children of our own. And I love that too, because that recognizes that getting married and starting a family together, it's not just for the feel-good, warm, fuzzy feelings that you feel when you first fall in love. Those only really last so long. The science shows it's about 2 years and then those wear off. The long-term love is not to just share each other's secrets and be in love. It's about sharing a home and sharing a family and building a family, building something that will last for generations and generations. So I love that. I love it. We're still kids, but we're so in love, fighting against all odds. I know it'll be all right, darling. Just hold my hand, be my girl, I'll be your man. I see the future in your eyes, baby. I'm dancing in the dark with you between my arms. And I love this. Like I said, I know it sounds super sentimental, and I know there's a lot of you out there who love this song too. It's not just me, but this song truly just reminds me so much, of me and my husband. And I have a lot of sentimental feel-goods about this song, so I hope you enjoyed it. And there's my deconstruction. All right, now let's talk about a movie. Now, on the topic of relationships and stuff, I know we're over time, but we're just gonna wrap it up real quick with our with our movie and then a book real quick. So this is so bad. One of my husband's and I's very, very favorite things to watch is The Office. And I'm not saying everything on that show is correct or moral or right, but regardless, call us what you will, we love this show. We have watched the whole thing, all the seasons together multiple times. And one of my very favorite things about it is the Jim and Pam love story. I love that. Now, that is not to say that Jim and Pam did all it right or any of it right. My goodness, they met when she was essentially, for those of you who have never seen The Office, Jim and Pam love story is Jim and Pam meet when Pam is engaged to her fiance. They've been engaged for like 3 years and they're living together. That's already red flag, no. And then it continues on. She finally breaks up with him and they're friends for a while. It's complicated. Anyways, they essentially end up falling in love and then they move in with each other. So they're setting themselves up for failure, quite frankly, because science shows that if you live together with your partner before you get married, there's like a 90% chance that you're going to get divorced. So I am not condoning Jim and Pam's actions. I do not think you should base your life in any way, or your romantic life especially, on anything that they do. But with that said, with that disclaimer, don't do it the Jim and Pam style. I still love watching it because the actors did such a good job, especially Jim did such a good job at making you fall in love with it, that it just is kind of heartwarming. So here's like a little tiny bit. It's kind of a long clip, so I'm just going to play just a little bit. Here's a little clip of Jim and Pam, and if you're an Office watcher, then you're going to love it, and if you're not, you'll just be confused for a second. Here's that.
Some might even say we had our first date last night.
Oh, really?
Really?
Why might some say that?
Because there was dinner by candlelight. Mm-hmm. Dinner and a show, if you include Michael's movie. And there was dancing and fireworks. Pretty good date.
We didn't dance.
You're right, we didn't dance. It was more like swaying. But still romantic.
Swaying isn't dancing.
Okay, so Jim and Pam love story. Like I said, don't condone it, but I sure love watching it. All right, real quick, and last on our agenda is books. Now, this book is phenomenal. If you're a woman, you need to read this. If you're in a fantastic relationship, you need to read this. If you're not in a relationship at all and you're looking, you need to read this. If you're dating and thinking about getting married, you need to read this. If you've been married for the last 70 years, which probably aren't listening, and you probably figured it out and not listening to this episode if you've been married for 70 years. But if you've been married for 20 years, you need to read this. Whether you're in a good place or a bad place, it's a phenomenal book. It's called The Proper Care and Feeding of Husbands by Dr. Laura Schlesinger. I can never say her name right, but look her up. Her last name is Schlesinger. And this book is amazing. Cannot say enough good about it. So here's a little clip about it. Women want to be in love, get married, and live happily ever after, yet disrespect for men and disregard for their values, feelings, and needs of husbands has fast become the standard for male-female relationships in America. Those two attitudes clash in unfortunate ways to create struggle and strife that could be a beautiful relationship. Countless women call Dr. Laura unhappy in their marriages and seemingly at a loss to understand the incredible power they have over their men to create the kind of home and life they yearn for. Now, in the proper care and feeding of husbands, Dr. Laura shows you, well, with real-life examples and real-life solutions, how to wield the power to attain the sexual pleasure, intimacy, love, joy, and peace you want in your life, and it is spot on. And the reason why there's not another book called How to Take Care of Your Wife is because in our culture, that's not what we're struggling with. We're all catering towards women hardcore, but as a culture, we're beating our men over the head with their masculinity, with their needs, with their desires, with their nature. And there's so much to be loved and celebrated and embraced and encouraged in men. And that is why we're the most important woman in their life. And this book is so phenomenal. And it talks about, hey, don't beat up your man with his sexual needs. Don't hang it over his head. Don't use his nature against him to make heartache in your marriage and relationship. And I just can't say enough good about it. It's so good. Dr. Laura is such a hardcore conservative babe. I think she's phenomenal. I wish she was still on air. She got kicked off air years ago for reasons I won't go into right now, but she's a phenomenal advice giver. I don't agree with everything she says, but in this book, she's pretty darn spot on. I'd say I agree with 98% of it. It's really good. So, like I said, doesn't matter who you are, you should check out this book. It's really good. Proper Care and Feeding of Husbands. With that, it brings this relationship episode to an end. Hope you enjoyed it. I hope you loved it. I hope you gained something. If you did, please leave a 5-star review. It's very important. It really helps in the ratings. And then next to that, please, if you feel so inclined, please write a review. Tell me how much you loved it. Tell me that you think it's awesome, and I will keep making these episodes. And on top of that, here's another thing too. If you like this episode and you like it more than maybe other episodes, then send it, share it, make it go crazy. And if I see a ton of listens for this, guess what? I'll just make more episodes like this. You guys don't understand that how much power you have as listeners and reviewers, that if you really, really, really like something and you share it with a ton of your friends, then guess what? There's going to be more of that. So there you go, is your pep talk. And I hope you had a really great Valentine's week. And we'll talk soon. God bless you. God bless America.